Welcome to Practical Talk Time. I'm Sandy Wrobel, your host, and we have Elaine Kuzmeskus back with us. She's been on many of our shows. She is a medium, an astrologer, and an author. She just published her 7th book this past May, and we're going to be talking about a book and information from it, Seance 101, and this was actually published back in 2007. And Elaine, we're so happy to have you back again. You're so interesting with your stories and your research and everything you have to tell us.
And I might add, that book was published by a major publisher, Schiffer Publishing, out of the Philadelphia area, and they also published Connecticut Ghost and the Art of Mediumship. They're a great company. I really love working with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And people could get it in any bookstore or on Amazon or whatever.
It's all through the country. It's a national book.
Okay. This book is about physical mediumship, and can you tell our viewers exactly what is physical mediumship? There's more than one kind of mediumship, and this is physical?
Yes, the National Association of Spiritualist Churches, the group that I belong to and who ordained me as a minister and tested me as a medium many years back, classified 2 types of mediums. Mental mediums, which use clairvoyance, clairsentience, and clairaudience. In other words, they see, feel, and hear spirit, as opposed to physical mediums that demonstrate phenomena that everyone in the room can see, hear, or feel. For example, in direct voice, everyone in the room can hear spirit speak. When they do materializations, everyone in the room can see the form materialize. And when they do psychokinesis, isn't that a great word?
Yes,
it's a word
it is.
Psychologists put together. That means the movement of objects. Everyone in the room sees the table move or sees the table levitate. So that would be physical mediumship.
I have an angel in my bedroom that I had on the corner of the armoire.
Yeah.
And every day when I wake up, it was turned around.
Oh, it's
and I kept
lovely.
changing it. Finally, I moved it further back, and it no longer turned around.
Did it turn around to look over your shoulder?
No, it turned around and away from me.
Oh, my goodness, Sandy.
I guess it didn't like where it was.
Oh, you're such a good girl, too.
But, strange. I don't know what was causing it. But anyway, when I moved it a little further back, she was happy.
I just told you what caused it, psychokinesis. The spirits did get your attention, didn't they?
Definitely.
Tell about the story when you went to dinner and the chandelier started moving.
Oh, that was like we went out to a restaurant. Friend Mark that I taught with, and another teacher too. There were 3 of us. There should have been 4. And he lives in a very, very old house, I think from the 1700s even, over in Sparkling, New York, near I think it's Nyack, New York.
I've been there many times.
Yeah. And the kitchen's actually downstairs in the basement. But it's set up as a kitchen and everything, and a very, high ceiling. And over the table was a lamp like from the 50s, they had them on the cords. And the air conditioner was running. And the chandelier, one and only time I've been to his house, it was going around in circles. So I said, does your lamp always turn in circles? And they said, oh no, it's probably the air conditioner. And then it stopped turning. And Sophie said, see, I told you, it's the air conditioner. I said, Sophie, the air conditioner's still running.
Right.
And so I don't know if he was joking or not, but Mark said, oh, that's Luigi. Luigi was an old Italian man that formerly owned the house and was a friend of his, I think, grandfather. And prior to having dinner, he showed us around the area. And one was the cemetery overlooking the Palisades, because I thought, why is he bringing us to the cemetery? But it's beautiful.
Yes, there can be. There could be places to enjoy nature and to pray for your loved ones.
So he pointed out Luigi's monument, which was large, with pillars and stuff, and you could see the name. And I forget the last name. I think it was something like Bosco or something similar to that.
Right.
Luigi Bosco.
Right.
And so I don't know if he was trying to be funny or not. He said, oh, that's a Luigi. And
didn't you test it?
Well, as a joke, Sophie said, oh, this has nothing to do with it. And I said, hey, Luigi,
It's you.
Sophie doesn't believe you. I said, show Sophie that it's really you. I said, instead of turning in circles, start going like this back and forth.
Right, it has intelligence.
And it did.
Well, that
and Sophie was
wonderful.
petrified. Because then I was teasing her, and she and Mark just looked, and I said, you want to ride home with us, Luigi? And Sophie was upset the whole time I was driving.
That's evidential, and that's how mediumship began in 1848, March 31. Two little girls were playing in the basement of their home in Hydesville, New York, upstate New York, and they heard spirit raps. And being playful children, they decided to test the spirit. So they would go, and the spirit would rap back. And then they devised an alphabet. 1 rap for A, 2 raps for B, and they got the name of the peddler, and they also found out that he had been murdered and buried in the basement. Well, it wasn't long before these little girls, Kate and Maggie Fox, were the talk of Hydesville, New York. And they brought them into Rochester, New York, and they became very famous as mediums. But they started with the physical phenomena of table rapping. Mm-hmm. And I've done table rapping at the New England School of Metaphysics. We have a round table, and we've used it so much, a lot of the nails have loosened, so the top actually goes around in a circle as well as moves. And one time we were doing our table tipping, and the table started to levitate on one leg. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, I wonder what this is. So I put one finger on the table, and it went around the corner of the living room into my office. And that is spirit letting you know that they're around. But you know, physical phenomena is very interesting today because now we can use electronics. The old-time mediums really didn't have easy access to photography, and they didn't have tape recorders, mm-hmm. so they couldn't do the electronic voice phenomena or the psychic photography that we can do today. And psychic photography is one of our specialties at the New England School of Metaphysics. I brought some pictures to show you. You might enjoy.
Can you point out for the cameraman
right
which
here,
one to go
this
to?
This middle picture is right in the front porch of my home in Suffield, Connecticut. And there's my students, and they're all taking psychic photographs. So I took a picture of them, and guess what? All the orbs were surrounding them as they were taking pictures. And here's some of the pictures that they took in the trees outside the home. And this is above in the night sky above the house. And we had done an 18-week course on psychic photography. And many of the students ended up being very fine psychic photographers. Mm-hmm. But you know, there's other things beside just using a camera. And you know, you can use a digital camera or a regular camera. But I prefer a digital. Do you know why, Sandy?
No, I don't.
Because there's no film in a digital camera. And if you use a regular camera, sometimes people will say the film is malfunctioned. But digital is no film, so they can't say that. Mm-hmm. But you can do it in many ways. And if you look in the back here, we like to do a fire ceremony. And here we have a picture of a friend of mine, Mary Art, who is a shaman. And in fact, we hope to have her do a class in shamanism.
Is that the Mary I've met?
Yes,
okay.
A lovely lady. She studied with the Four Winds Society, completely credentialed. And she did a fire ceremony. Look at the beautiful angel that appeared. Maybe you can get a close-up there. And you can see the angel right in the corner here. But that is actually the fire. I had to laugh. That year we had 2 students, one of which was married to a born-again Christian. You know what she thought of metaphysics and psychic.
Yes.
The work of the devil. So I was so happy we had an angel picture to show her. Uh-huh. And then the following year, I took this picture of this beautiful angel. And it was, again, a shaman ceremony. And my guide said, when you get the pictures, look at it at different angles. I think you'll agree it is an angel.
You have to look at it carefully, like the head.
See
the back of it is dark.
See
yeah.
the face and the wings.
Yeah.
But if you look at it really upside down, it's an angel upside down because it's really the fire. And if my guides hadn't told me to try the pictures in different directions, I would never have known there was an angel there. So there are many angels watching over us unaware.
And I know even before I knew anything about spirit photography, the proofs from my, when I got married, done by a professional photographer, and one of them you can actually see very distinctly a picture of a person's face right behind someone
Oh, you're
in the
so
church.
mediumistic, Sandy. You should be on this side, not me.
I had nothing to do. It was just
Oh,
the
you
picture
brought
being
them
taken
in.
there.
You brought them in. And I thought I would share with your viewers some of my favorite psychic photographs. And they're
These you've taken or
these
just
are ones
that-
I've taken.
Okay.
And they're all very different. Now, the first one, this is the very first psychic photograph I ever took. There's Mary. She was one of the students and some other students. And a friend of mine, a dear friend, her name is Maureen, she received a digital camera for Christmas. This is like 12 years ago when digital cameras were just new. Well, she was so excited. She said, could I take a picture at the seance? Because the way we finished the New England School of Metaphysics, the last class, we do a seance for the new mediums. And we put a tape recorder in the middle of our table. We have a traditional seance, and we have spirit communications. Well, I said, you know, we can't really have flashes going off because the seance is in a darkened room. We just have a candle. But I'll ask the spirits if we could arrange something. And my guide said, tell her she can take the picture after the seance is over. We'll stay for a few minutes. And I always tell the students not to worry about anything harming us because I always have 3 Franciscan monks that protect us when we work. And I also have an Egyptian guide. Well, there are the 3 monks. You can see the hoods, the outlines, right here. It's 1, 2, 3. And there's my Egyptian guide. It's just
I'm
an
thinking
outline.
on TV it might be difficult to see that.
That's
but
all right. But you
yeah.
can see, if you get a little closer, that it's definitely the outline of hooded 3 hoods. And those are the Franciscan monks. And this tall gentleman is my Egyptian guide that works with me. So we got outlines, and outlines are exciting. Orbs are usually the first step in psychic photography. It takes a lot of practice. And then you get wonderful outlines. And then the next step, very often, is you get to get faces. Now, this is a picture that was taken actually in Danbury.
Right.
And it was at the music hall. And you know the fun
Danbury
thing?
Music Center.
You were with me.
Yes.
We had gone there to investigate a story for Connecticut Ghosts about the ghost of the elevator.
Yes.
Approximately 7 o'clock every Tuesday night, the elevator would ring.
No, around 9.
Around 9. It was a little
9,
later.
yeah.
But anyway, around 9 at a certain time, and everybody could hear the elevator ring and go up, even though there was no one there.
Right.
So I said, oh, that's kind of an exciting
And
story.
even some of the conductors, they would run out and see, you know.
Nobody was there. And I
there was
talked
nobody
to
there.
people in the choir. I talked to the conductor, and they all said, yes, this happens around 8:30, 9 o'clock on
Right.
Tuesday evenings. Well, alas, spent the whole evening, no elevator ghost was present, which was disappointing. But I had one picture left in a throwaway camera, and I thought, well, I'll take a picture while I'm here. And I got a psychic photo, and you can see one of the pictures came in upside down. You were with me when I took the picture, so you know I didn't doctor it. It was a bearded gentleman right here. And then and if you can close up, you can see his face, his beard. He's got a tie on, a white shirt, and a suit. It's a little hard. You can see
I think that you have this in your book, too,
yes,
don't you?
I do, but not in
Yes.
color. And I think it's better in color.
This is a picture, the painting of Marian Anderson.
Right.
Up in the
Yes, and
concert hall.
and you can actually see him. He appeared. And then there were an interesting group of faces here on the side. And again, it might be a little hard to see, but there are 3 faces here. And they just spontaneously appeared. So I think the next phase after you get orbs and outlines is to actually get the clear face of spirit. So it's a wonderful thing to do. And of course, it's evidential to a point because of course it could be faked by Photoshop, but you were my witness when I took the picture. And so I got some wonderful things from that.
Yeah.
The third picture here is very...
And the elevator did break, and since it was repaired, it breaks frequently.
Oh my goodness, maybe the spirit's a little shy now. Yeah, this is a picture of the Empire State Building. It was taken in about 2005, I guess. I did a program on astro travel at the Learning Annex in New York City. Again, I had a throwaway camera, and I thought, oh my goodness, what a beautiful sight to see the Empire State Building. And I got all these spirit orbs. This is not raindrops. This is actually, it was a clear day, spirit orbs of spirits that were helping me with the class. So I thought that was interesting. Enjoyed it thoroughly as I do most of my psychic research. But that's enough about me. I have other things that other people have done that I think are pretty exciting. We're just starting to get into slate writing at the New England School of Metaphysics. Have you ever heard of slate writing?
Yes, at your house.
Oh, you probably have if
Yeah.
you've been over. Well, one of the things the old-time mediums used to do is they would take the children's slates, put a little bit of chalk in between them, tie them with a piece of leather rope, and put them on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone would hold hands. Do you know why they held hands?
No.
For control. They wanted to be sure no one touched those slates but spirit.
Oh, okay.
And my teacher, Gladys Custance, did go to a slate writing seance at Camp Chesterfield. And her friend Maroy Morse was with her, and her husband, Dr. Morse, had died that year. And everybody sat, there were 12 in the room, they all held hands, and Gladys was a professional medium. She meditated, and she could hear the chalk scratching on the slates. Mm-hmm. Well, after about a half an hour, the medium came out of trance. The medium's a trance medium, and everyone opened their slates. And on Mrs. Morse's slate in her husband's handwriting was a very personal message.
Now, was he still alive?
He had died. He died that
year. Oh, he had
year.
died.
So that was evidential
Mm-hmm.
because it was in his own handwriting. Now, this is one of my favorite slate writers, was named Fred Evans, and he lived in San Francisco. He was an English gentleman, seafaring man. He ended up in San Francisco. And he had mediumship ability that he had developed, table tipping and the like while at sea. And he developed into quite a fine slate writer. And they would put the slates with a little piece of chalk, and you can see the beautiful pictures that spirit drew. These were all drawn by spirits.
Now, the slate would be black, so what makes it white
The
around?
chalk. They actually drew that with chalk. And I've seen.
So that's all white chalk around, and even the one on the right.
Yeah. And the most evidential slate that he did is this one here. It is a slate that was done in San Francisco. It took several hours. It wasn't done all at once. And there were 12 spirits that wrote in 12 different languages, including Chinese. See the Chinese? And different languages. Isn't that amazing? And it was verified because there were people that witnessed that when it was done. So slate writing is quite an interesting phenomenon. We talk about several of these in Seance 101. One of the most interesting things, I think, though, are things that have to do with materialization. And if you look at the center picture here, these are all over the internet, by the way. This is a picture of probably the most famous materialization medium in the United States. She lived in Indiana. Her name was Ethel Post Parrish. Have you ever heard of
No,
Mrs.
I never
Parrish?
heard of her. Yeah.
Well, she was a rather slender lady. There she is in trance. That's why she's got her head nodded. She's in dead trance. And while she was in trance, she had a cabinet keeper who was her cousin. Mm-hmm. And she was also a very famous medium.
The lady who's holding the curtain.
Here, Mabel Riffle. This is in the 1940s. She had the 1940s shoes on. And, yeah. And while Mrs. Parrish was in trance, there was this cord of ectoplasm that would form, and it starts as a cloud. And out of that cloud would appear her spirit guide named Silverbell. And she was excellent at this. In fact, one time she allowed a doctor to research her. And the doctor weighed Mrs. Parrish before she went to trance. And then he found that she had a certain loss of weight. And they weighed the spirit, and the spirit had the exact poundage that Mrs.
How did they weigh the spirit?
On a scale. They brought a scale in, and the spirit of Silverbell was sufficiently materialized that she got on the scale. So it was quite an interesting.
And who took the picture?
These were very rare pictures because she very seldom allowed anybody to take pictures during the seance, because even a little bit of light will destroy the ectoplasm. So they were taking a series of, I think, about 30 pictures at the same sitting under infrared. And it was very unusual that she allowed pictures to be taken. So it was quite interesting. And I think she is the best example in the United States of a materialization medium. She's no longer with us, but it's quite interesting to see, isn't it? And then in England, we had a wonderful medium by the name of Minnie Harrison. Minnie Harrison was a trumpet medium, and she was also a materialization medium. We are very fortunate that her son, who's now in his late 80s, Tom Harrison, wrote a book about his mother.
Uh-huh.
And in infrared light, they actually took a picture of one materialization, and it was his Aunt Ag, or Aunt Agnes as they called her. And you can see the spirit's face forming there. And she was probably the most, one of the most honest and genuine of the physical mediums in England. So it's quite interesting to see. We don't have a lot of physical mediums now. There's a few that are developing. At Lilydale, they're going to have an excellent medium by the name of Kai Mugi. I've researched him a bit. And Kai is from Germany.
Uh-huh.
He has a group in Germany. Actually, it started in his mother's basement, a group of people who wanted to research physical phenomena. He's a sociologist and a filmmaker by trade. And they named the circle the Felix Circle because his guide is his grandfather, who was an eye doctor in Germany who passed over. And Kai does quite a lot of physical work. I went to a wonderful seance with Kai Mugi. And the first thing you do, you're only allowed 25 in the room. It's pitch dark, and everyone in the room can hear the taps, spirit taps 3 times. And then during the seance, he has an aluminum trumpet that goes around the room and touches everyone. Now, I had my glasses on because I didn't want to miss a thing, you know. And so when the trumpet came to me, it hit me right so hard on my side, I thought it was going to break my glasses, but it didn't. And then it went to my husband, and it went to his chest, and the trumpet tap, tap, tap on his chest.
Uh-huh.
So we all knew that trumpet was moving around the room. So there are some people that are doing physical phenomena, but very few. And the one that I've researched recently was Kai Mugi.
Yeah. And I would think it's not, so if somebody actually wanted to experiment at home, they could get some slates and try doing
absolutely, but I always recommend that you do a little research before you experiment because there are good and there are bad spirits. So we want to bring only the highest and best. So always start with a prayer, do some research. A good book to read would be The Art of Mediumship. I have a lot of suggestions on how people can develop mediumship. The chapter on home circles would help them. And make sure you have like-minded people, because nothing is more deadly to a seance than a skeptic. You get one skeptical person and the energy just goes down. So you want to have people that are sincere believers. I had a student call recently and asked to join the class, and she says, are there any qualifications? I said, we like-minded people that are sincere in their belief. That's my qualification.
But I have heard of people that are really skeptical, but they'll go on a lark, or someone says, oh, come along, and they'll go to a medium, and then they're really amazed at the messages that they get.
Sometimes they are, yeah.
So there are skeptical people that really do get messages or what have you.
I think it's wise to keep an open mind, but not so open you have a hole in your head. You know, you want to be sure and test too.
So how far have you gotten with the slate writing in your classes?
Oh, well, we've been very blessed. We had a little, next time I'll bring a picture of the, we had a stick figure.
Maybe you could even bring a student one time.
Maybe, they're fun to bring. The picture that I got was a stick figure holding his hands up. It looked like a little American Indian, and there was a white cloud over his head, and that is the name of my guide, White Cloud.
Oh.
So even though it was a simple figure, I think that was showing me that White Cloud was working with us on the physical mediumship. And people are beginning to get faces, so it's good.
Oh, because I know when I was at your house a while back, it was just a few little chalk marks.
We were improving, and that's how we should be. Everybody should be trying to improve their mediumship, as with all talents.
Yeah, and a lot of things, even when I listen, even if I've experienced something, I think, this sounds really crazy, it can't be. But yet there's many things I have experienced, and even the table tipping. Several years ago in Salem, Halloween, they always have all kinds of programs. And there were three different occasions. What was the one thing about table tipping? And people randomly called from the audience. I wasn't one of them. And they held the hands, and the table lifted up, and it moved around. Each time it moved like in a different direction.
It's exciting.
And then they would sit down, and they'd call more people up. And after it was over, I thought, I don't know, maybe there's something under the table.
Well, you should
So
test.
I did, and
Should
they
test.
left it there, and I went over and I looked, and there was absolutely nothing there. And it was the same as other tables in the restaurant. It was the Lyceum
Well, how nice.
restaurant
That sounds like a
in
lot of
Salem.
fun.
But it's like you see it and you don't want to believe it because it's so unusual.
It is. I've also.
Or maybe if we believe, more people believe, maybe it wouldn't seem as unusual. It would happen more often.
Well, maybe that's certainly true. I've also experimented with electronic voice phenomena. I went to a seminar with Tom and Lisa Butler. They run the American Association for EVP.
Mm-hmm.
And being a medium, I was tuning in and meditating before we did our first EVP session.
Uh-huh.
Reverend Carl Hewitt had died in February of the year, and it was now October. And I heard Reverend Carl say to me, "Elaine, you're close to a breakthrough." And I thought, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
So my very first EVP message that I received was Carl. He heard a voice saying, "Carl," in his southern accent. So that was exciting. And I asked everyone, now, can you hear the voice? They said, yes, it's Carl. I said, does he have an accent? They said, yes, he sounds like he's from the South. So it's really fun for me to get evidence, too.
Can anyone become a medium? Do you think there's different degrees of developing, or?
I think you can become, with practice, most people can become more mediumistic, but the level of professional mediumship takes a lot of time to develop, just like any craft.
Right, yeah.
Think of an artist. There are some people that are natural artists. Some people are natural mediums, like Marjorie Crandon, who wrote the book, The Medium Who Baffled Houdini. She was a natural.
And some people are even natural authors. They can just
Right.
sit down and write.
Right, and people are natural musicians,
Right,
but they're rare. Most people do have to train.
right.
Yeah.
And of course, you run the metaphysical school where you train
Right.
and have students. I think in the future it might be a nice idea to have one of your students come
I
along.
would love to have some wonderful students I'd love to bring. Yes.
I just thought of that now, that people could hear what your actual students have to say. And of course, you're a professional medium and they're a student, so
And
they could have a little different input.
Right, I think they would be a lot of fun to talk to.
Yeah, and do you have any new book planned for the future?
Well,
that you'll
right now I'm working
author?
on something more local about our psychic history in Connecticut. So that'll be
well,
fun.
We'll have you back again on that one when
Yeah,
it comes out.
yeah.
And thank you again so
thank you
much
so
for
much,
being on
Sandy.
our
It's been
show.
fun.
And I hope everyone in the audience watching has enjoyed it. And again, if you have any questions or would like to have contact with Elaine Kuzmeskus, email us at practicaltalktime@yahoo.com. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you.